Okay, so this is going to fill in between 5:20 of 5 minutes 20 seconds into part 3 and about 3 minutes 40 seconds into part 4. I'm going to go through a lot faster than those times would indicate. So I'm starting at page 5, where we're doing follow-ups. We're finding out stuff about the school. And they're on the local water and sewer system, but the local authorities say everything's fine. That doesn't necessarily mean anything if we're attached to a long pipe out of the town and something happened along that pipe. It could affect the school and not affect anybody else. But we talk to the people at the school and they go, everything's fine here, but you don't know what their lawyers have told them to share and not to share with us. There are a few students that live off campus, but most of them are residents, and the residents are not in dorms, they're in cottages. So we go, okay, send us a map. Send us a list of where people live. And we'd sit with our map and, okay, we have a sick person in cottage 2, a sick person in cottage 6, sick person in cottage 3, hoping that the cases will cluster, right? Looking for clues. But they don't. They're just spread kind of all over the place in the different cottages. And if you think about it, that makes sense because our student-staff ratio kind of is close for the whole campus. And residences would definitely skew students more than staff. So it probably wasn't going to be the residents. We need something where everybody could be exposed. And the staff don't live at school. They don't live in the cottages. Maybe one per cottage may live there. There is a cafeteria. Everybody eats in the cafeteria. And, people go into town to eat too. And there's not just one classroom building, there's a whole bunch of different classroom buildings. So your first question is based on, we're about to go there and start looking at the site to look for clues. What's the first place we want to look into? Where do we think this illness probably originated? And generally, the first thing people come up with is the cafeteria because it does expose everybody. Now, there's another reason that you may not be aware of. It's in there, but not necessarily conscious of it. And that is way back when you heard the symptoms, something in your brain went, food. And yes, these symptoms very often are associated with food. Could be water, could be fumes. It's not the only possibility for these types of symptoms, but food seems logical. Again, the cafeteria seems logical. Your second question is, so what's your second choice? So, what else, if we go there and the cafeteria doesn't pan out, what's the next place we're going to go and look? And I'm going to leave you to come up with an answer for that. Then we go to the cafeteria. What are we looking at? We can't go look at the food that they served because that's long gone, but we can look at the menu. We can look at their suppliers. Who knows? Maybe there's another case 50 miles away because the supplier only serves that school in this county and that school over there. So we may need to backtrack the suppliers. We want to look at how they store stuff. We want to look at their refrigeration. We want to look at their set up for putting stuff out. Does it keep stuff hot enough? We'd like to know how they're doing stuff, but keep in mind we're the health department and they know we're coming, so the way that they're performing the day we get there may not match at all what they've been doing. But as many people in the class have suggested, we have a whole room full of witnesses. So we can go out into the cafeteria and go, is this the way they usually work? And it may, people may go, I've never seen them wear the gloves before. Hairnets, I didn't even know they had hairnets. They said, boy, this place is a lot cleaner than it normally is. Or maybe they normally work very nicely. We can look at the menu and see if there's anything on the menu that jumps out. It's like, you serve shrimp one of those days? Okay, who knows? But if you've worked in a cafeteria, if you work in this field, there's probably other stuff you can think of that we would look at, and feel free to put that on your list. Every class gives me a different list anyway. There's no right or wrong answers for the lists. Now, the last question is the one that I wind up answering for the class anyway, and that is, we go there. We check all the stuff we wanted to check, and nothing seems to give us another clue. So now what do? Do we give up? Do we go to our second choice? Not yet. We're not giving up on the cafeteria. We're going to take advantage of the fact that we are on site and we have access to the people there. And that's question 4. Now, start a little bit of the next page, because when the sound comes back up on part 4, there's a discussion for question 1. But I'm going to get you there. What we have is like the world's weirdest backwards experiment. We know what happened, so we have our experimental results. Those are our sick people and whatever sickness they have. But we don't know what made them sick. We don't know what, in an experiment, that would be the variable. The thing gives you the results. Well, when you set up an experiment, in order to know what your variable is really doing, you want a comparison test that matches your test except takes the variable out or changes it, varies it. Like in a drug test, right? Is that right now they're testing vaccines. Your experimental group gets an injection with the vaccine in it. Your control group gets an injection with, as far as they know, the vaccine in it. So everybody thinks they've been vaccinated. What the results that are coming out now is that we like the one Moderna came out yesterday. We had 95 after they should have been immune from the vaccine. We had 95 cases turn up. I think it was 91 of them were in the control group, the group that didn't get the vaccine, and 4 of them were in the experimental group. That's a pretty good suggestion that the vaccine's working pretty well. That 90-some% of the cases we actually are getting are showing up in the people who thought they were vaccinated, but they weren't actually vaccinated. So if we can, here's the problem we have here. We can sit down our sick people and ask them a whole bunch of questions, but they live in the same place. They all use the cafeteria. They're going to have a whole bunch of things in common, and we're not going to know which one of those is important. But if we match them with a group that also live on campus and also use the cafeteria, then there's a really good chance that our sick people are going to have something in common that they don't have in common with the people that didn't get sick. Maybe there'll be a meal they went to that the not sick people didn't go to, or a food that they ate that the not sick people didn't eat. And that's our variable. That's what we're looking for. So we want a comparison group to set up. So that's question 1. So we need a bunch of people who weren't sick. That's in our control group, because they didn't get exposed to the variable, we're assuming. And because we're investigating the cafeteria, we want people who use the cafeteria and were around the week that everybody got sick using the cafeteria. And that's the answer to question 1. And just in case it doesn't show up that well on the video, how do we put a group together? Well, one of the students suggested very nicely that you can go sit in the cafeteria. Have your survey up that you're going to give everybody, and sit in the cafeteria. And as people come in, you go, do you eat here regularly? Yeah. Were you sick last week? No. Here, take our survey, give it back to us. Fill it out and give it back to us. We're going to give the survey to the sick people. We're going to give the survey to as many controls as we can round up. If they eat in the cafeteria regularly, we're around the week that people got sick and didn't get sick themselves. We could also go into the school records and just select a bunch of people and send the surveys out. And the first question would be, were you sick last week? Do you eat in the cafeteria regularly? Were you around eating in the cafeteria last week? And then the survey goes from there. That gets us far enough into page 6 that it should pick up at about 340 of part 4.